everybody. I'm Danielle Downs. Today, I'm going to be going over dry cutting on curly hair. So, let me get out of the way so you can actually see the shape. So this is the example of the haircut that we're going to do today. It was something that I was playing around with the other day. I have done this on quite a few of my clients as well. What I love about this shape is that it gives almost like a nice little kind of sweetheart shape. So it's tighter in the sides, we build a little bit of weight through the middle, and then we collapse the shape just a tiny bit over the top with some layering. So that way you have the option of wearing either a full bang like what I did with the mannequin pre-done, or you can part it on whichever side that you want, you know, depending on if you're a middle side or whatever part person. So today, I wanted to go over the dry aspect of cutting curly hair because I feel like every naturalista is a little bit different in how they're comfortable with their hair being manipulated. In this scenario, this is the client that comes in, maybe hasn't been in a while, and you're gonna evaluate the hair, do a treatment, do the entire style, diffuse it, and then go in for the dry haircut. So normally, we're always used to just some type of a comb, right? So today, you're just gonna toss these out of the way. We're not gonna need them. Not a wide tooth one, not a fine tooth. So we're just using our hands, we're just using our scissors, and our clips, of course. So today, let's get into this. Let's have some fun with it.
Okay, so right before we get into it, a couple things for you guys out there. This class is live on Minerva Beauty's Facebook as well. So if you guys are looking for salon furniture, they've got some beautiful stuff over there. So check out Minerva Beauty. They've been supporting our podcast and live classes and everything for a very long time. And they got some super cool stuff, including this, designer series that we talked about yesterday a little bit in the class, but just beautiful white and gold. Look at this, Danielle. It would have been awesome to have this stuff when we started our salon, right?
That would go with those trays. So perfect.
It really would. So if you guys are looking for salon furniture, definitely check it out. Also, if you guys can, make sure you share this class with whatever platform you're on. If you're on YouTube, just take a screenshot, maybe share it on Instagram. However you can, that would be the best thing that you guys can do for us to try to pass this class along. And then if you guys have a question, type Q and put in your question. Danielle is here to answer as much as possible for you guys. So just type Q and put in your question in the chat so that we can see it, and I'll throw it up on the screen for Danielle to answer. Other than that, have fun, watch the class, get involved in the chat. The more you guys talk, the more Facebook likes to share this around their platform. So have fun, get to know each other, ask questions, and here we go.
All right, so now to start off, the way that I like to evaluate the hair after we figure out what kind of curl pattern we're dealing with. Right now, we're dealing with about like a mixture of a 3C to like a 4A. And we'll go over another time going over that whole curl chart so that you can get comfortable and confident with it. Now, first, to start off the haircut, I like to start in the back. Turn that around. Now, seeing as how we're using our fingers, we're not using a comb at all. I swear, people only ever want to call when you start doing somebody's hair.
That's so true.
Jeez, like, no, I don't want to talk to you. But anyway, so we're just going to lightly part that off with our fingers. And you never want to separate the actual curl. So when you're separating it, if you come across a little resistance where a curl is clumped together, don't separate that. Just go over it. So it's not so much that we're trying to get perfect clean partings. We're working with how the hair falls and the curl pattern itself. Because when you separate the clumped curl, then you're going to create frizz. And remember, this is supposed to be for someone that wants to start off, that wants to do a dry haircut. So we're going to part that down the center.
Let's
flip that
spin
away
a little bit, Danielle. Can we face it a little more towards? Yeah, perfect, right there.
Okay.
We'll see how that works. I don't know if that'll be good.
All right, hopefully I don't get in the way.
Yeah.
And it would help if I actually got my scissors. There we go. All right, so again, when we're separating, you just want to find that little opening in the hair itself Open that up. And we're taking slightly vertical diagonal partings. Now again, if it makes it easier for you, that's okay to just clip off the section that we're not going to use. We have this little kind of zigzagged diagonal vertical parting. Now we're just going to lightly stretch the hair because again, you want to keep that curl pattern as true to its usual form as possible. Most curly girls don't want to lose a lot of length. So that's another reason why dry cutting might be your option. I'm just going to raise this up a little bit. Usually I'm the short person in the salon and I don't need to do this, but seeing as how we're doing a little dry cutting today, I need that to be a little higher. I know, messing up the camera angle there.
All good.
Okay.
Will this work on all like a little bit looser curl pattern, or do you change it up for that?
That's just a matter of your tension, really, because obviously if it's a looser curl pattern and you're pulling it, then you're going to pull a lot of that curl out. Whereas right now I'm using a moderate amount of tension to pull that curl just a little bit, but still keep those ridges in sight. Now I'm also going to angle my fingers towards myself, so that way I'm creating just that almost A-line shape. So now we're going to go in and just point cut that. Now, another thing to be aware of is that when you're doing a blunt cut on curls, a lot of the time what you want to try to do is get in between that wave pattern, because if you cut it on the larger side of that elliptical curl, then it's a little too blunt and kind of blows out a little bit. So honestly, point cutting is my favorite for it because then it shatters that line just a little bit and skinnies out the end of the curl itself. So that's something that you can do, but if the hair is finer, you kind of want that blunt edge. But if the hair is medium to coarse, I go in and I chip at it just a tiny bit. Okay, on to our next little section. Now, everybody's nape area is a little different. Some people it's a little narrower, some people it's a little wider. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, you're going to do 3 to 4 sections. You might actually do more of a condensed cutting section where it could be just 2 sections, or maybe you're just taking that all in one. Totally depends on the density that you're dealing with. Now, seeing as how I want this to actually be a little shorter in the sides themselves, I'm not going to over direct that to the middle because I would actually be bringing more length if I over direct to the middle. So this would be, I guess what you would say, a traveling guide. So again, we're just going to lightly give that a pull so that way we know that we're matching what we've already cut and we're not going to get a step. And we're going to go in, point cut this next section because I already have my established guide right next to that. And you want to make sure that you are not cutting your previously cut guide, because unlike when you're doing regular cutting and you're dropping out a part of your section, you're going to be taking all of this. So that's why you have to be aware of your first section, over direct that a little bit to where it's a little longer, and then chip at it. Okay.
Heather's got a good question. What if they occasionally straighten their hair?
Now, if they occasionally straighten their hair, that's where I would actually comb this out and get a little bit more consistency with it. This is for more of your curly girl that doesn't really ever blow dry her hair. And she wants to sometimes get just a little bit of erratic curl sections, but still have an overall shape.
Okay.
And as you can tell, as usual, I have my repetitive motion kind of hair cutting as well as styling. I just like consistency. A lot of the times when you're trying something new, it's a little nerve-wracking and you lose your way because you're overthinking that. When it comes to styles and cuts like this, where it's pretty repetitive along each section, I find it a little easier to remember and to go through it confidently. Okay, so again, taking that diagonal vertical section, I'm going to take my guide from the center, I'm going to bring that over and over direct that to that new guide. Now, body position wise, I would normally be standing right in front of my section, but seeing as how I'm not trying to get in front of the camera here and block anybody, I'm just standing off to the side. Okay, so again, when we're lifting and pulling our section, we want to make sure that we're not pulling the curl too tight, because then we're straightening it, and then that is going to spring up shorter. So moderate amount of tension so where you can still see the ridges of your curls. And right now I know this is my guide right here for my longer section, and then my shorter sections I can see through. A little hard to read on camera, but again, you want to do that just slightly longer than your previous section so that you're not cutting into it and making it shorter. Because the effect of this is that it's going to be slightly longer in that center and then a little shorter in the sides. All right, now, depending on how that hair sections out, sometimes you may actually just have like a little corner piece. Don't be tempted to take that all in one and treat that like a condensed cutting in this instance, because then we're going to have this one piece that's going to end up being a lot longer than the rest, instead of having that nice little sweetheart shape that you can see right here.
Yes.
Oh my God, the cutting guy said that it's right. Y'all, you don't know how uncomfortable it is sometimes.
You know,
when Matt walks in the room when I'm cutting and I'm like, am I doing this right?
You know what's so funny? You said the cutting guy thinks it's right. I literally looked at the chat and I was like, who's the cutting guy? Yeah, that one hit me, but I was like looking, I'm like, what are the people saying? I'm like, sweet, it's right.
It's a nervous thing. See, I'm so used to having a comb. I went to go reach for it, but no, you don't want to do that right now. And then you can also drop your section, take that in two if you need to, because we all have kind of like different sized fingers, hands, all of that. So do what feels comfortable for you in that instance. So if you need to take that section in two, do that. All right, so now you can see that we're starting to get our shape. The bottom I cut last because, as you can see, we start to get that little point, which you can keep that. Totally up to you. So that's one of the reasons that I call it a sweetheart haircut, is because you do end up with that point. Now, me, I usually cut that out because when it gets wet and starts to elongate a little bit, then it ends up just being almost like a tail that I don't really want. Okay, so now we're going to expand all of that out, check how we're looking. Okay, I like that. So now we're going to go to our next section and drop that down. All right, now, like I said, we're going to be taking a horizontal section right across I would say that's more like the occipital area and into the parietal ridge. So you're going to leave that high point out. Now again, we're just going to be lightly separating the hair. So what you want to do is, this is pretty much where the occipital or high point of the head and crown kind of meets. So we're going to be separating from there. I'm just going to go underneath the curls, separate that way. Now this section, you can see that is a little bit clumped. So instead of separating it, I'm just going to find the curls individually and separate it that way. So it does leave a little bit of a jagged or serrated parting, and that is okay, because again, this is for your curly girls, not for your curly girls that want to straighten their hair. So in that instance, I would go in with just your standard wet cut, more tension.
It's really interesting the way that I think maybe it's good to be more assertive with clients, because we're always looking for the other options, like the opposite. So it's like, oh, well, we're cutting this. Well, can you wear it straight too? Well, no, not really, because they're two different things. So I think, you know, you got to put together different techniques. I'm just trying to process this in my mind, to be honest, because it's making me think about how every class you do, move your camera.
Okay.
every class you do that people do, or I do, or whatever, there's always that, okay, we're doing curly hair. Then how do they wear it straight? Well, then I would do it the way that I would cut it straight. And then it would just have to kind of, the curly would suffer a little bit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if they're going to wear it straight, then you got to cut it like you would cut it straight, and the curly would suffer just a little bit. It would just be in my opinion, stronger weight lines, stronger shape, because in curly hair, you're going to kind of have more of those kind of ups and downs, kind of like you're saying, like you go a little bit longer on each section, and as you're working through it. I don't know. I'm just processing this through too, but.
Oh no, actually, that's where I'm happy that you pointed that out, because that's why I was giving a scenario of this is the curly client that is very, very nervous. She's used to, say, like your diva cut or Rezo cut kind of experiences where they do start off dry and then style the hair, because when somebody comes in with their hair pre-styled, that's their set. Because the way that I would do a wash and go is different from how maybe my client does hers, or the way that I layer on the product is different. So we will get different curl patterns. So I lost my place. Where was I going with that?
Oh, you're fine. But
like I said, you have to change it up according to your guest.
Yep.
During the consultation, talk to them about how they have previously gotten their hair cut. What did they like about it? What made them a little bit nervous? And then you can pretty much customize it yourself. And that's the great thing about Matt's videos, is where he is showing a lot of different ways to do the same kind of shape, but either combining vertical with horizontal, or maybe even doing a triangle section, even though you're doing a rounded shape. Like, these are things that are meant to make you think and make you customize it for your guest. All right, so going back to the cut.
Yeah, go back to the cut, because I see that you're doing the horizontal. You're cutting horizontally now. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm going to just turn that so that way you can see a little bit more of what I'm doing.
That's good.
So right here, you can see where we built up a little bit with that vertical diagonal, and that provides our little base, and as well as the start of that sweetheart kind of shape. Now, the reason that I switched to horizontal in this middle section is that I literally want to build up on that weight and build a platform for the top to sit over. So I am just going in, point cutting right along that edge, using the underside as my guide. So that's why you can see just that seamless little buildup right here. And again, not stretching the hair a lot, just lightly to match what's underneath. So like this little curl right here, this is where I would go in and do more like your diva cut curl, which is grabbing that section and cutting that. When it comes to finer areas like this, I don't really like to pull, because then I'm putting more tension and that hair has a tendency to spring back in. And usually the hair around the hairline as well as the top is usually a little bit coilier or curlier and tighter curls. When it comes to looser waves and looser curls, I find that that's actually a little bit lazier, and you might need more tension, so that you can basically keep that curl from getting too elongated. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because now I'm going in too many directions. I swear, my brain does not always work that way. Okay, so again, just doing that little bit of light topiary spot cutting, which is more like your diva cut curls, because in the front on this mannequin, she's a little bit finer. Now, otherwise, I would just take that in my hand and start to point cut that way. And because it's denser in the back here, that is where I'm taking that entire section and cutting horizontally. And
guys, so if you think about kind of the breakdown, how we kind of go about hair cutting, right? Danielle did vertical partings in the bottom, in the nape area. And what that does is it's going to make it easier for her to remove a little bit more weight. And that's why you get that kind of, you're still getting a graduated effect, but you're removing more weight. And then when she moves horizontal in the midsection, that's going to tend to make you want to pull down more. So you're going to get that little bit more of a weight line. And she's kind of pulling the hair together, so that builds up the weight line as well. So that's why you're going to start to see that buildup of weight right around that line. So I think, Danielle, it's important to also kind of talk about the fact that where you want that weight line to actually sit on the face. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That outer shape.
Absolutely. So obviously when you're looking at somebody's face shape and they're a little wider, say through their jawline, their cheek line, and then they narrow out in their jaw. Something like this would actually accentuate if you go too short in the front. And so that's where maybe you would actually want to over direct that back a little bit. So that way the front actually ends up being a little longer. It hugs that face shape a little bit more and makes more of that oval, which is the ideal face shape that we're always trying to maintain. If somebody has a tiny, tiny little face and they've got goo gobs of hair, then I'm actually going to, yes, goo gobs, that's a word.
Okay.
That is a technical term.
Love that word.
That's a Jersey in me. What do you want? So that's where I would actually do that just a little bit shorter around the face so that I can open it up more so that her hair isn't swallowing up her entire face and getting lost in there. So again, it's always about looking at your clients, not just at the hair that you're working on in the moment, and checking back in constantly, thinking through what you're doing. So yes, there are techniques, there are reasons behind them, but you still have to be a little bit organic and mindful at the same time. So that's what this cut is. It's organic because we're not pulling, we're not making a fully fleshed out structured shape, but we are.
Here's a good spot for this question because you're going to probably take another section soon. Can you use a tail comb to section the hair? And why or why not?
You can use a tail comb to section, but again, once you go in, and I'm just going to use my scissors as an example, once you go in and you pull, you're now separating all of these pieces of hair and you're creating frizz.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying you would want to go in, lightly separate with your hands to find exactly where the curl has actually clumped together and separates on its own and lifts up without having to separate the curl itself. I know we're so hardcore trained to have precision, especially if you're Vidal Sassoon trained. This must be driving you absolutely bonkers. But again, this is where with curls, they have different moods. There are areas of the head that have tighter curl patterns, and especially if there are like whorls, swirls, cowlicks, and other growth patterns that are going to change how that curl actually comes out of the head. So that's why hand cutting, I guess you can call it, freeform cutting is a little bit better for curly hair. But again, that depends on the curl pattern as well as your client's preference, because not every curly girl prefers this. Some of them really do want that heavily structured and perfect shape, even if that means that they're going to lose some of their curl, like their length, for a little while. So that all comes with the consultation, to be quite honest. Okay, so again, lifting that section because I'm building weight. Some areas I am going to be taking a lot of hair, some areas not so much. And when I am doing those pieces where I'm just pulling a curl, again, I am looking for where that curl skinnies out a little bit. So I think this is a good example right here, where I just give a little pull. I can see right now, right here is where the curl is a little bit lazy, and right here is where it's stronger. So do I want to cut here? Not really, because then the curl is going to be really blunt. So I'm actually going to go just underneath that and cut right here, because then the curl is on its downturn and not sticking straight up into the air. So it actually blends in a lot better. I'll show you another example right next to that, where if I cut it on the thicker side and just blunt, see how it snapped right back? Can't even find it now, and it doesn't really blend in too much because now it's just this weird shorter piece that's living right here. And you can see that it's almost like, oh, I shouldn't have cut there. Whereas this one blended right in just fine. Does that make sense?
That was a great visual.
Yay! Good for you and that overhead camera.
I'm 100% cutting this haircut after you're done.
So to
Can't
be
wait.
quite honest, like I started going and doing Matt's virtual cutting club on Mondays, about a month, 2 months ago?
Yeah.
And I did get some questions like, oh, you work with him. Why would you do that? You can just go in there. And it's like, well, yeah, I can. But at the same time, like, I'm a hairdresser that if I don't get inspired and I don't get challenged a lot, yes, I get lazy. Should
True.
I? No, I should not. But
Everybody
I do
does.
because I'm human.
Yeah.
And it actually got me thinking more about cutting all over again and the different shapes and not just, okay, this is fine hair. Let me stamp that cut right on there. So it got me thinking more about my curly girls again and the different ways that I used to cut their hair and why it's actually changed, because I think we get into those kinds of ruts. So I have probably tweaked this haircut at least 10 times because I knew I'd be cutting it in front of Matt. And I still like pestered him at least 4 or 5 times in the past week. Like, yeah, I just want to go over that haircut with you again.
Yeah, well, I'm psyched to watch this. I'm inspired already. I love the idea because I do like precision cutting, but I love the idea. I love curly hair first off because you can see the shape. Like with straight hair, you're just always trying to. I mean, you can see a shape in straight hair, but you know, it's not like instant gratification. You got to do a lot of styling effort to really see things. But
Right,
I just
especially
love-
expansion.
Yeah, exactly. So being able to like pinch a section but have a purpose behind it, like that's what I like about what you did at the beginning. Because again, you know, even though it's not precise, it is like everything has a purpose. And then cutting those curls that way and being able to see how you can actually cut a curl to make it perform, like to be better, is really cool too.
Right. That's why, as I said last week, like going to the Bronner Brothers show years ago, just like so opened up my mind to how amazing curls are, even if they're your not so desirable curls, the 4 C's, which honestly, 4 C's are now my favorite. I know, not everybody's, but they are mine because those are like your Angie Stone or, you know, your Diana Ross, where those are the big frizzy kind of like, yes, I'm rocking this. I love it. Shaka Khan, that's another one that, yes, she has those larger, loopier curls, but she's got that diameter. She's got that fluff. And that's what I'm saying. Every curl is different. Every way that you wear it is different. And it creates a mood.
Yep.
And an attitude. And I love that.
All right, where are you cutting right now? Because I want to get the camera better.
Oh, sorry. So now that is where I'm still going over that middle section where we were doing the horizontal cutting, but now I'm just fluffing it
Okay.
so that I can see where that nice platform that I've created is sitting and where I may need to round out some of those sections. So this is where I'm still doing that little bit of just like diva curl, curl by curl cutting.
Okay. And I think it's Yvette. We get these mannequins Pivot Point. I purchased the, it's called the Amber mannequin. And this beautiful hair color was done by Danielle. Was that the last class we
Yeah.
did? Yeah.
Which I'm so glad because I had another mannequin set up, but then I had in a couple of clients, set of twins, that they saw it and they said, "Ooh, doll baby." And I'm like, all right, go ahead, have at it. So I'm glad that I still had this one ready because that one got combed out.
Nice.
All right, so I'm not going to have that much to do in the top. So there's going to be minimal amount of length taken off. But in this section, I'm going to switch back to vertical. And again, because of the fact that I want to just collapse that shape a little bit, that's why I'm creating just that little bit of layering, basically. Okay, so trying to decide exactly where I want to see this shape start to round out. So I'm just giving it a little fluff here and there. All right, so I do want to start in the back where I see a little bit of a flat spot. So again, just lifting that up, going from the high point of the head. I know can't really see that with all of the curl.
Here, can we turn that head?
Yes. Okay. So with this top section, as I said, I don't want to create a perfectly rounded shape. I just want to marry in the top curls with the bottom very loosely, so that way she has the option of wearing it forward, wearing it off to the side. If she wants, wearing it all back and not having like these random long pieces that hang over. Okay, so just taking that vertical section, that's a little wide, so I'm just going to take some of these little pieces out. Again, making sure that we're not separating our clumped curls. We're just gently trying to find where they separate. And then just using that tiny bit of tension. Let's see, there we go. And right here, what I'm going to be rounding out just a tiny bit is this section right here. It's not that big of a difference, so technically I could have left it, but we want to do a full haircut.
And think about what Danielle's doing, guys. So she did vertical and removed weight, built that shape up, dropped the weight off horizontally, cut the middle, and now she's going back vertical to remove just a little bit of weight from the edge. So it's just those small little switches as she goes through the cut that changes kind of the ease of taking out weight or keeping weight.
Now, what I'm doing with this section is that I'm actually bringing it up. Now, I don't have a protractor, so I don't know exactly what degree. I'm just bringing it up and elevating it over my previous section, which was horizontal. Again, I'm just finding that little section right here where, again, if I were to just let that drop, it would actually just like overhang that area. That's why right now I'm bringing that up a little higher so that I am rounding this tiny little section. And just point cutting. Now, when you're point cutting these sections, you can still pay attention to that example that I gave you before of trying to find the skinnier rounded part of your curl so that you are not making a blunt edge. Okay, so I'm liking what that is looking like right here. And then just working my way around the head. So just to recap, in the bottom section, we had done vertical diagonal. In the middle section, we had done a horizontal and just dropped everything flat and brought it to an even weight point. Nothing was traveling. And now we switched back to vertical and just relieving a little bit of that weight line right in the top section. Now in the front, what I usually like to do is round out this middle section just a little bit, because again, if the hair is going to be worn forward, if it's too long and not layered, like in this example, where are we? There we go.
I can go to this, Danielle. Here.
Okay. So right here, you'll be able to see where it's a little bit more rounded out. So that way it's longer through the fringe area, a little shorter through the interior, so that it creates a little bit more height through the hair itself. Because if everything were perfectly even, then that would be way too long and too heavy, and then all of the curl would get pulled flat right on that top section. So that's why in the front, if I know that somebody likes to wear a little bit more of a fringe, then I'll round that out. Now that's not going to affect someone if they're wearing it off to the side, because you're creating a little bit more height in that crown area, which is normally where a lot of people have like female pattern baldness or even like a little tension alopecia. Which reminds me, I did want to talk about this today because it's something that unfortunately, as a result of COVID, I've been seeing in the salon a little bit, is something called telogen effluvium. So it's a stress-induced shedding phase or extended shedding phase. And it's something that's happening a lot because of just the stress of COVID, but also for anyone that has had COVID, if you've had a sustained fever of like 102 to 104, then a couple months later, you can actually be experiencing some of that thinning. So something to be a little aware of right now, because especially when it comes to your curly clients, that area starts to show up right in the top and right in the front of the hairline. So if you start to notice that, tell them to go get it looked at, because I did have a client a couple of months ago that was happening. Poor girl actually started crying in my chair. She felt really bad. She called me up later like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I don't want you to think it was you. I was just frustrated with my hair. And I'm like, no, no, no. And we got to talking about it. And she was like, actually, I have been diagnosed with that. And she was like, I totally forgot that, yeah, it's something that can come back again. You know, like it can be treated, your hair can come back, but then your stress level goes up and it happens again. So it had been a couple of years since she dealt with that. So again, just something to think about and to be aware of right now.
Can you name that again?
Telogen effluvium. So, you know, like your telogen phase of your growing, resting, and shedding, or ACT, anagen, catagen, telogen. So telogen effluvium is the extreme shedding phase. So instead of just going through that for maybe a couple of weeks, you're going through it for a couple of months, and you're losing 3 times the amount of hair that you normally would. So that's like something that I've just been talking about with everybody in my chairs, because most women these days are very stressed and just dealing with stuff and like, whatever, I'll deal with my hair later. Well, let's not wait until you have a bald spot. Let's talk about it now, because that is even more stress when you lose hair. Okay, tangent done.
That's good. It's good information. I was just thinking, I had a client recently that had massive shedding.
Yeah, I mean, it happens more to women, but it happens to men too.
Yeah, it was a female client. I just don't remember. I'm trying to think of who it was.
And it's definitely something that can be easily treated and reversed. Just let's not wait until it gets to a bald spot, because then that's going to take months to years to actually recover from. All right, so this section I missed. Shame on me, because I was going on and on with my tangent about telogen effluvium. All right, so this mannequin, I actually want to give a tiny bit of a part to. So I'm going to pull her over to the side. I'm going to give that a little fluff. Make sure that my shape is still nice and supported. I'm seeing just a couple of little long areas here. So I'm going to pull those up, find those, give that just a little point cut, and marry those guys in. Okay, so you always want to be checking and making sure that your shape is still flowing. So make sure that you're still looking in the mirror. You're not just looking at the head itself. Okay, and then I'm seeing just a little long piece. And of course, I'm getting confused on which side that is. There we go. So right here, this little guy. Okay. And same, I see just a little area that can use a little love right here. So now I've fluffed this out. I've like where my shape is at. Now I'm just going to collapse her a little bit. And another thing that I like to do when I feel like it's getting a little out of shape is we can take a little bit of the Invisible Wear Boomerang and Restyling Mist. Give that a little light scrunch. This is nice for just waking up the curls a little bit without having to completely mist it down and start all over again, which you can do. It depends on what look you're going for. Okay, so Invisible Wear Boomerang Restyling Mist. And if you want something that has a little bit more muscle to it, then the Paul Mitchell Lavender Mint Refresh Foam is also a great one if you want something that has a little bit more like hold to it and you really want to get in there and saturate a little bit more. This one, I just wanted to lightly mist her and just give a twirl to a couple of little sections. But I wanted to maintain a little bit more of that lived-in wash and go style. Again, everybody's different with their wash and go. I chose to go with more of a cream and gel combo so that this was a softer one that had a little bit more frizz to it. If you're like a 4C and you don't want to see any of that, then you're just going to want to go in with like gel combos, no creams. All right. And that is our finished look.
Love it. You want to give it a spin?
Of course. Oh, let me get out of the way so you can see her.
Subtract that.
Okay, so again, you can see that nice little buildup and that slight rounding, and then where that top is collapsed a little bit. Okay, so this is our dry cut. I hope everybody got a little something out of that. If you have any other questions or there was something that you wanted to know that I didn't cover today, then please feel free to hit me up on Instagram at @thehandsdowns. All right, so wherever you are in the world, stay safe. Hopefully I will see you guys next week, or you'll see me.
Yep.
And so next week, I'm going to be going over a little bit more bridal styles. We got a couple of requests for those. Or if you still want to see a little bit more with curly hair, we can go over the wet aspect hair cutting. And we can do a different shape, but something a little bit similar. So let us know in the comments, and we'll customize that class for you next week. Bye.
See you guys.